Hey guys, Casual Game Guy. Today we're going to be taking a look at a brand new deck that comes packed into Generation Booster 2, that's Soaring Ascent of Gale and Blossom. And this deck list is going to be for the Narukami clan. Now, way back when Narukami was first introduced, we had an awesome card called Kaiser Vermillion. It's seen a little bit of fluctuating play over the last couple of months, about the last year or so, but with the release of this new set, it is going to get a whole new lease on life, what with its new partner, Kaiser Crimson. And to me it seems like there's going to be this whole Kaiser just archetype built around Vermillion. But before I go into any more speculation or any more distractions, let's get into the deck list. Now you'll notice that the deck list over here has got a lot of empty slots, primarily in your grade 2 line and definitely in your grade 0 line. That's because I wanted to give you guys the flexibility of choosing your own triggers, testing out and see what works, and tweaking it as you see fit. Same goes to your grade 2 line. Maybe you like the 8 units in your grade 2s and you maybe want to devote some space to a different spot, or however you want to work it. So, looking at our grade 0, we have Harbinger Draco Kit, which has a somewhat unique ability, but it kind of vibes with the whole generation thing. On a Gen Break 1 skill, it gains plus 3,000 power when one of your opponent's units are bound due to a card effect that you currently control. Now this opens up all of your rear guards for pretty decent boosting options. It is one of the only grade 0s that does attack for 8k when you are in Generation Break 1, and it does give your Vanguard a pretty nice bolstered attack force. And you guys are going to get to see what I mean later on in the deck. But, moving on, our grade 1 lineup consists of Mighty Bolt Dragoon at 4, whose skill allows you to use him as a grade 3 for the purposes of Stride. Pretty simple and straightforward. I like these new units, and I think every deck is going to benefit from them. Next up, for our grade 1s, we have Dragon Dancer Anastasia, and she is your unflipping perfect guard. If you've got one Anastasia in your drop zone at the time when you guard, you can easily take 1 damage, flip it face up. Enough said. If you discard an Anastasia for an Anastasia, you're going to get the unflip boost because while you're guarding, you have that card in your discard pile in your drop zone. And pulling up the reins, I've got 3 Eradicator Egghelm Draco Kit. Now, aside from being difficult to say, you're kind of wondering maybe why he's in here. Well, Kaiser Crimson is a new Legion unit that offers a brand new ability to Vermillion it didn't have access to before, and that is completely eliminating its Counterblast 3 cost, which, even in Limit Break 4, it's still a little difficult to pull off. So Egghelm Draco Kit says, okay, Limit Break 4 is now anything 3 or less. So go for it, have fun. This does offer you the chance to give Vermillion his attacking ability right off the bat as early as possible when you either Legion or you don't Legion. So it's completely up to you. Now moving on up to our grade 2 lines, we have Voltage Horn Dragon. Now this is at 4, and it's a little bit of a weird card to play because it uses the Bind skill. And what it does is, when you attack and boost, you can counterblast 1. Your opponent chooses one of their units, retires it, and then binds it face up. Now again, this is where the weirdness comes in, because the binding means it's completely out of the game for the for the duration of the game, and your opponent really doesn't have access to it. The fact that they get to choose sort of leaves the game a little unbalanced in your favor, but balanced in their favor. So they get to go, okay, well I've got this worthless grade 0 out now that I know you're playing this new Narukami clan, or this new Narukami deck. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of my most worthless unit, which, let's face it, you're going to be taking a little bit of a bite on here. But the whole object is you want your opponent to guard against this card. Our next grade 2 is Demonic Dragon Berserker Chitora. It can't target a rear guard, so why even have it in the deck to begin with? Well, on your turn, it gains a skill, Counterblast 1, and when it hits, you take 1 unit out of your opponent's drop zone and bind it. Now again, this is another card to force your opponent to guard. This deck is going to be very aggressive, very fast, and you're going to want to do as much damage as you can, as early as you can, to sort of keep the game flowing. Which brings us to our grade 3 lines, which I've already mentioned ad nauseum. We have Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion, who is at 4, and who also has a Counterblast 3. You get to attack all of your opponent's units in the front row, and it gains plus 2,000 power. Now on the downside, it does have the, if you don't have Narukami in your field, it loses 2,000 power. But that's kind of a moot point since the new clan fight rules say, hey, forget about it. Now, moving on to our second grade 3, we're looking at Dragonic Kaiser Crimson, as I mentioned earlier, again ad nauseum. And he's got a brand new skill that you can Soul Blast if another unit is in the center column. It gains plus 2,000 power. In addition to taking away the limit break for Vermillion, and in addition to being a Legion unit, it becomes an incredibly powerful attacking force. If I remember correctly off the top of my head, Crimson has 2,000 power when he legions, or 22,000 power when he legions rather. So, stacking on another 2,000 power and another 3,000 power from Draco Kid's skill, and that entire column as another 8,000 power heavier, which means it's going to go blow for blow, if it comes to it, with any Stride unit that is out on the field. Now I know Stride goes back into the side deck after it's done being used, but the point that I'm making is that it's going to retain a lot of power, and that's power that's going to stay there for pretty much the duration of the game, as long as you can maintain all these weird costs. Now, speaking of Stride, we're going to take a look at our grade 4 lineup. We've got Lightning Dragon Knight Zorus at 4, and when he hits, your opponent chooses rear guard, retires it, binds it face up along with 2 cards from the drop zone. Now this is an incredibly useful skill. This is again something you're going to want your opponent to guard with, or guard against rather, to try and keep you from getting the pressure as early on as possible. The downside to that is your opponent's going to have to give up a lot of cards in order to guard with, because of the 2,000 power from Legion added to the 15,000 power from Stride. That's going to be a lot to guard against. Now, if you've seen my last video, you should know that this next card is a complete no-brainer. We've got Conquering Supreme Dragon, Conquest Dragon. And we're not going to get into that for that information, just see my last video. Now, these are all, nice cards and everything, but what do you do if you want more options? Well, 3 off the bat are really good. First off, we're looking at Heatblade Dragoon. It's got a Genbreak 1 skill that adds itself 3,000 power when attacking a Vanguard. It's kind of standard at this point because, well, what isn't standard at +3 on attacking for a simple generation break? Normally cards that we've seen in the past are Counterblast 1 and it gains plus 3000, which in my opinion has been a clunky and slow mechanic. Next up, we're looking at Eradicator Vowing Sword Dragon, which you can replace with either Crimson or Vermillion. It's up to you entirely. But what you get to do is when you ride another Narukami unit on top of Vowing Sword Dragon, it gains plus 10,000 power, and you get to retire one of your opponent's units. And our last option for this deck is Dragonic Vanquisher. Now this one is incredibly powerful. When an opponent's rearguard is retired, it gains plus 3,000 power and gains a critical. Something that Vermillion or Crimson are not yet capable of, unless you hit a critical trigger that maybe or maybe you're not running. It also has a Counterblast 1. When it strides, you can retire a unit in the front row and bind it. So that's all the time I have for today. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll be back soon with another video for you.